Hi Danish learner, welcome back to my channel Danish Matters. I'm Tina Baga, your Danish friend and tutor. Today I'm talking about our alphabet and especially the last three letters of our alphabet, the E, the Ö, and the O. I think you know them, but I'm just going to show them to you anyway. Look like that. Now, before I tell you the story, which is very short, I will tell you about how we make them, because that's not evident to everybody, right? So, A is the first one of these three letters, and it's constructed by an A and an E, meaning an A and an E. We put them together and we get A. And for the capital, it really is an A and just with three lines to the right. And for the smaller one, in English you call it capital and lowercase, or uppercase and lowercase. We call it big and small letters, store og små bogstaver. Bogstaver, yeah, that's letters in Danish. So when we make the A, it looks like this. And as you can see, we construct it like that, and it makes it this when it's a capital, yeah, when it's uppercase. The small one, the lowercase, is this one and this one together, and the printed version is some sort of that one right there. But I write it like this one. So the way I write it is actually I just make an O and I sort of slice it in a kind of round way. So I go like that, and outside of the O circle, you could say, yeah? So it becomes that one right there. So this is the writing for the word æble with a capital, with the printed printed A, and then my kind, yeah? People write it, of course, in all sorts of ways, but those are just some of the ones that you can be presented to out there in Danish society and in Danish texts and Danish writing everywhere, yeah? Sometimes my students would say when I write on the whiteboard, like, is that one of the strange letters? Yeah, that's an A, yeah? Okay. Ø is an O and an E together. That's our Ø. It doesn't really look that way because Ø is actually an O and it is slashed or broken. That's what you call it in English, a slashed O or a broken O. Yeah? So, like that. And when I say that it's consists of an O and an E, that's actually what we used to use it like back in the day when we were going to write the URL on the internet and we wanted to go on sites that were in Denmark. We couldn't write our Ø or our A or our O for that matter. So we would actually use these older versions that we knew about that were the way that we constructed these letters. So for the A, we would actually have to write an A and an E. And for the Ø, we would have to write an O and an E. And for the Ø, we would write two A's or double A, because that's what they used to do back in the day. And I don't know if you've noticed, but street names and some city names actually have this old O consisting of two A's. That is from back in the day. So that is older names or older street names or city names. And when I went to high school, I went to school with a guy whose last name was Ågaard. And at one point, the teacher was asking him, how do you spell that? And he said, Ågaard with 4 A's. Ågaard med 4 A'er. And the teacher was like, and then, oh yeah, okay. Because even in my time, a long time ago, we did not write this. Yeah, it was still the O with the circle about, the A with the circle about. That was our O still back in the day. Yeah. So, but his last name was then Ågaard, written just above my fingers there. And then you see the more modern version if anyone wanted to write it like that. But of course, as a family name, people will want to keep it the old way because that's what they were used to. That was their family name, right? City names with this double A is, for example, Aarhus and Aalborg. And within the municipalities, you might actually see that they do write it the old way still. But the modern way with the O, that is the A with a circle above, that is also correct. So I could say that it is always correct to write it with the modern O, the A with a circle above, and not always with the two A's or the double A's. But they are allowed to, within their municipality, whatever they write there, they are allowed to write it the old way. There's also another city, it's just an example, there are more cities with this double A in them. A double A, and that is just above my fingers, Greno. Yeah, you can write it both ways, but the modern way with the circle above, that's the always the correct way, you could say. Yeah. Note that sometimes there will be words in Danish where two A's sort of collide in a word. That does not always mean that you should pronounce it like an O. So be careful when you look at a noun, for example, and it's a compound noun, and it consists of two nouns put together in a compound noun, and they both end on an A. Then, you shouldn't put those A's together and pronounce it O, yeah? Because there was one noun and then another, and they were just put together and then forming a word with two A's next to each other, but it is not because they have to be pronounced like an O. They just happen to end on an A. Well, one ending on an A and the other beginning with an A. An A. That is just what it is, but that doesn't mean that you have to pronounce it like an O, yeah, or that you should. It's still just A in both cases, yeah. So when they go together, for example, what would you say? There's an example on the internet that I saw, tema avis, which is theme newspaper. Tema ending on an A, and avis beginning with an A, and then you get A next to each other. But it's not temovis. Temovis. It's tema avis, because those are the nouns that are put together in one noun. Yeah. So be careful, look out for that. The short history of these letters is that the A is from the Middle Ages, from Latin actually, and then Old English. And later it was adopted into Scandinavian or Nordic languages in the 1100s. So yeah, it's been around for a long time in our writing, in our alphabet. It's also used in Norwegian and Icelandic and Faroese. And Faroese is the language they speak on the Faroe Islands. And that country, it is actually a country, is part of the Danish Commonwealth together with Greenland, right? So there's Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands together in one united Commonwealth. Yeah. We've had since the 1100s also. Yeah, so that is also very old. And it is the same letter in Norwegian. Yeah. O is actually what we could call a Swedish O, because they've had it since the 1400s, whereas Norway got it in 1917, and Denmark or Danish didn't get this letter until 1948. Yeah, so we've had this double A in our language until 1948. Yeah, but from the middle of the 1800s, some people, for example, Danish folk high school people, they sort of introduced this. So they were starting to use it in their writing. And then it took a while, right, until 1948 to get it proper, grounded in the Danish alphabet, in the Danish language. But then there was this challenge of where to place it in our alphabet. This new letter, where do we put it? So in the 1950s, this was actually a debate that was going on. And it is at the very last, yeah? E-Ö-O. So if you ever look in old dictionaries or old encyclopedias, like physical ones, and you want to look up something that begins with O, then you have to go to the last book or the last pages to find it. Yeah? It was a debate. Some would say that it should be in the beginning of the alphabet, and some would say it last, but now it is always correct to have it last. One fun fact about this alphabet and these three letters is that in Swedish, they would have another order of these three letters, E, U, O. They would have O, E, U. Yeah. And their A is actually an A with 2 dots above, just like in German. So it looks a little bit different in Swedish, whereas in Norwegian, it's the same letters, they look the same, and it's the same order in the Norwegian alphabet as well. So this was the story of our 3 last letters in our alphabet, E, U, O. And I hope that you got something out of it. And please like and subscribe. And if you want to support my work, that would be greatly appreciated. Go to the links in the comments to buy me a coffee. You can support me with whatever amount you want, big or small. And also remember that there are resources to find down there as well. There is a book, there is a video crash course for pronunciation, and there is an audio series called Back on the Horse with some sort of psychological elements for learning Danish. But there is also a whole package about vocab learning, which is about the language, yeah, how you learn more vocab, because there's a lot to learn in the Danish language, right? So go check those links out. And I just want to finish by saying happy Danish learning.